We are back for part 2 with Jazz and Jessie.
Hi.
I'm a recovering alcoholic addict, and so is Jessie. She's got 18 years, and I have 5 compared to that. So you were talking to me a bit about how your mind has changed, what recovery has done for you spiritually, and so we'll touch on that, and then we'll touch on how everything, this will be interesting, how everything was about you when you're in early recovery, right? And I think that takes time to wear off, but I can also agree with that you don't think everything's about you when you're making everything about you. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which speaks to part of the craziness, like
Tell me about that. Like when you were like
Yeah.
in a room and
so I've often said, like, for the unmanageability that drugs and alcohol can bring to your life,
yeah.
if you've always been experiencing life through that lens, that's all you know. So for somebody to say, oh, this is unusual behavior, it's like, this is the only lens in which I've looked at my life, right?
Yeah, so you're saying like pre-recovery is
Mhm.
one lens.
Yeah.
So then recovery.
Yeah, life as you've
Different.
known it, right? Life as you've known it.
100%.
And
Yeah.
what, I feel strongly that how much the spiritual sickness contributed to the biggest part of my problem. I identify as a young person being very, very self-conscious from as young as I can remember. My mom said I used to hide under her coat. So, alcohol and drugs had certainly not taken any place in my life at that time. Yet I was exceptionally self-conscious. And I see that played out later in life. For example, thinking thinking things that weren't real. As I was going to share, my favorite saying is, and it's a Mark Twain quote, I believe, I've been through some horrible things in my life, some of which actually happened.
Yeah.
And that speaks to the stories that I make up. Like, this is the worst place in the world that I can be.
100%. Yeah. And can you say that phrase one more time?
Yeah,
say that quote again.
I've been through some horrible things in my life, some of which have actually happened.
Yeah.
Because, the literature does talk about real or imagined. And in my,
and you don't think you're crazy until you start to try to not get crazy.
That's right. And that's
right?
what
like
I mean when I say it's the only lens. So
it's only one lens. Yeah. So it's like the crazy and the reality all mixed together.
Yeah, it's like somebody from the outside recognizing, like, talk about blind spots.
Oh, and
that you
and
can't,
there are so
you
many.
can't turn and see your brand of crazy. I because it's the only reality. Yeah, it's the only reality I knew, and I believed wholeheartedly when I thought somebody was, somebody was about to sneeze, and I walked into the room and they had this expression on their face. I would, in my self-centeredness, assume they're giving me a dirty look. They don't like me. And it's completely delusional. It's completely delusional. I've turned something that has nothing to do with me into something about me. They're trying to hurt me. They're making a face at me. Me. And, recognizing that so much of my problem, far before I ever drank or experimented with any drugs of any type, was the me problem.
Well, and the thinking problem.
100%.
Right?
Yes. and that's where I love that saying, because
me and my thinking.
Yeah.
And the saying that, say it again.
I've been through some horrible things in my life, some of which actually happened.
Yeah.
Because I've been through some horrible places in my mind, and they're not based in reality. Me walking in a room, somebody's sneezing, somebody else is clearing their throat, and I assume they're telling everybody to be quiet. Like, somebody's going, and I'm like, yeah, they're doing that to silence
extreme hypervigilance.
Yeah, and self-absorption, being completely self-absorbed and self-centered. That speaks to the
You
self-centeredness
know,
of the disease.
yeah, and sure, like they say that a lot in AA, and it's true. Like there is that self centeredness, but like I mean, are we really born that self centered, or is it like fear has taken over in some way, and now some you're trying to duck and hide,
That's right.
right? Like I don't think we're born with fear.
No.
I think that happens to us in some way, not to excuse these kinds of behavior, but that,
Yeah.
you
Well, and I think
know,
to heal
yeah.
anything, you have to take the judgment off of it, right? I don't think you can heal something that you're judging. I think it takes stepping back, not judging. I often give the analogy of, if you saw a little innocent baby gurgling and blowing bubbles and cooing and going the bathroom in their diaper, you wouldn't go, "What is wrong with you?
Well,
Why
some
are
people
you?"
do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know,
But to recognize though, like we only are where we are. We are where we are. And
mm,
that's what I mean, that lens. And it is a really interesting point because I, like you, when raising my children, I felt strongly that my job was don't wreck them. I don't
mm,
have to do a bunch of things or teach a bunch of things. Just don't wreck what they innately have. Don't do things that cause fear. Don't do things that cause bad self esteem. Don't be critical. Don't be, don't, because those are the things that manifest, I believe, in those protective mechanisms that don't serve us, right?
mm-hmm.
Like you said, that produce fear. So the fear of a child being uncomfortable from their mom yelling or their dad yelling later might manifest in that person walking into a room and assuming,
Oh,
somebody lifting their hand, oh, they're going to hit me. It's like
like the
that
fear
was
of authority, or like, and that harshness can be, the harshness is like dominating and aggressive, but it can, yeah, that does cause fear. And I think that the one of the ways to only really prevent that is like, well, hey, you got to stop doing it, or there has to be some repair, there has to be some acknowledgement. But that can totally create a chameleon in a child. Is like,
absolutely.
oh, I must be obedient to like people like really in like that are really in an authority position, that are
That's right.
dominating, that are aggressive, and you get these like very compliant codependent people that are like
Absolutely.
people, basically that's how people pleasing
That's
can
right.
start.
And it shows the old fashionedness of ruling with power and control and how ineffective that is.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really interesting,
Well, okay, wait, it is effective, but in a fear-based way, and
yeah,
probably in a shame-based way as well,
yeah. And
right?
it's a short term, it's a,
With long-term damage,
yeah,
short-term fix with long-term damage.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
found like with my parenting particularly, I knew that I could assert myself and have the behavior change or stop something a lot faster. But I did have some insight as to the long term effect of, if I rule with power and control right now, it's a lot easier and quicker and not as
Right.
hard.
It works in the
But I'm
moment.
going to,
Yeah.
my sister once got my mom a booklet, a little tablet, little writing pad, and it said, parenting, the first 40 years are the hardest, right? So if I
No
create
doubt.
mental damage on my children, I'm going to be helping them through that for far more years. So the time that I take with them that is very more tedious rather than stop it and get the behavior to quit, if I
And
can have more.
sometimes that's necessary, but I think it's like if it's like if that's the only way,
That's right. Yeah.
then
The best example I have of that is my son. And I really like that, and I'm sure it's because of recovery, that I haven't raised people pleasers. And believe me, sometimes I wish I had, because they do have their own
right?
minds. They won't comply with what I want them to do. They push back. They know it's safe to have their own
I like
opinions.
that. That's a healthy sign. Like I I teach my kids to also, I actually no, not teach them, but I allow them the space to say no, and
Yes.
it drives me nuts when they actually do it, because it's like I actually do. have to step back. And that's hard work as a parent because
Yes.
I'm forfeiting whatever that thing I need right now is like not happening because I'm thinking the long term gain of like, you know what? I want my kids to say no to big people
That's
that are
right.
trying to push their way in or go get me this or like,
Yeah.
I want my kids to learn how to say no and stick up for themselves
That's
because
right. And if we teach them to comply by aggressiveness or power and control, anybody is going to have that ability to dominate them and lead them astray, right? As soon
or
as
they
that,
could be like that
yeah,
or they
that's
could be
right.
the dominator too, which I mean, that's not a very attractive trait either.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, and like I was saying, like the best example, and it stands out to me so much, and I'm glad. And this was before recovery, so I'm not sure quite why I recognized this at the time. Although I really like the teachings of Carl Rogers, and he did a lot of the cognitive behavioral therapy, or the founder of that, and he talks about positive unconditional regard. And when I read that later on in life,
positive unconditional,
unconditional positive regard.
right?
So when my son, this example, he asked me one day, and he was probably 8 years old and he's over 30 now. He came to me and he goes, Mom, will you give me a ride to my friend's house? And he came close enough to me and he had horrible breath. And I said, Oh, yes, okay, sure. Go brush your teeth and then I'll take you. And he ran off. And then he came back into the room and he said, Brush my teeth. And I said, Oh, yeah, your breath is bad. Like you should brush your teeth. And he ran off again, came back, and he said, But the rules are I'm to brush my teeth in the morning and I'm to brush my teeth at bedtime.
Right. Or when they're really stinky.
Yeah, and that hadn't
right?
been brought up before
No,
then.
yeah, it's like you're faced with that, like, oh, now what do I do? I gotta be creative, right?
Yeah.
But it's like they're right.
Absolutely.
Like,
and he reasoned with me because he said, he called me out. He said, My friend doesn't care what my breath smells like. You do. And I'm willing. And he had gone so far as to put the toothpaste on the toothbrush and he had it sitting by the counter and it didn't strike him well. He came back and he said, You're making me brush my teeth because of something you are concerned about. I'm not concerned about it. My friend's not concerned about it. I'm willing to follow the rules. I'll brush my teeth in the morning like you've always told me I have to, and I'll brush my teeth at bedtime.
wow.
And basically, right now, if you think I need to brush my teeth before you're going to give me a ride, that's your problem, you know? And I could
How
have
old was he?
insisted 8.
Wow.
And I could have insisted and gotten into a power struggle with him.
He had a pretty good argument there. It's like
He did.
that's like one of those battles where you're like, you can have this one.
I did. I wanted to reward him for his
Sticking up for himself.
and his what's the word that I'm looking for? Insight. Like that's very insightful for a child to
like
recognize.
using his own brain and sticking up to you.
That's
you
right.
know, you're a tall adult, right?
That's right. I had another experience with the same son, and I was dating somebody that it later turned out had a cocaine addiction.
Right.
I had no idea.
No one ever does at the beginning.
I did not
right?
know. Yeah.
I feel like cocaine addicts aren't they like the sneakiest?
Absolutely.
I've heard some stories.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, all addicts can be quite sneaky. That's why you have to work on it, right? Even with yourself, you can be like, justify it or find a way out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, yeah, your story with your son.
Yeah. So my ex, I would promise myself every time he was coming home, I'd say, think of these triggers maybe from a last fight that didn't make sense. Like I thought, so it became this land bomb site that I was like, what do I have to do to not trigger him? And he later disclosed to me, and it was probably I know, and it's probably the nicest thing he ever disclosed to me is he goes, I picked a fight with you so that I could go use. You were never wrong. You were never any of the things that I accused you of being. I was purposely picking a fight with you so I could go use, which
I've heard of people doing that.
Yeah. And it was like such a relief.
Pick a fight and go cheat on them. Pick a fight and go shopping. Like pick a fight and spend a bunch of money. Like
that's right.
To get something. Like sometimes I think like addiction is not just the
limited to substance.
substance that you see. It's the all the behaviors, the thinking, the lying, the getting, the people pleasing. Like it's deep.
It's
You
very
know,
deep.
it's deep.
Yeah. So, and in that situation, I remember him and I had a fight,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a heating pad on my tummy. I was having tummy problems that
Mm-hmm.
day. So I had a heating pad on my tummy, which happened to be his. So we had some fight, and it was very
Hey, my
trivial.
coke's in there.
Yeah, it was very,
Kidding.
yeah. Well, and it was a really trivial fight. And he
Right.
hadn't disclosed to me about the cocaine thing yet. So I literally thought I was crazy. It's like, why do I make this person so mad? I'm not trying. Like,
Aw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the heating pad belonged to him. So he goes, give me the heating pad. So I gave it to him and he went to leave. And my son at the time was probably 3, like just barely talking. And this partner was very big in stature. So my little child went up and it shows how young he was. And it's so sad because he said, give my mummy back her lunch pad. He didn't know that it was a heating pad. He called it a lunch pad. And he goes, give my mummy back her lunch pad, because he'd seen that I had it for
Right. So
comfort
you like assumed it
and
was
he
yours.
asked for it. So I
Yeah.
gave it to him. But my son knew that I was having it on my stomach to comfort me or to help me with tummy pains.
Yeah.
And thankfully, my partner, this gentleman at the time, told me, he's like, I couldn't let this little child that was brave enough to stand up to me lose.
Correct him and
I
yeah,
couldn't
make him
take
feel
it.
small. Yeah.
I couldn't take it.
Yeah.
He admired my child for having the bravery to come after him, a big grown up, and yell at him, give my mom,
Be the big man of the
yeah.
house.
And I think he probably was still in diapers, honestly, and come
Right.
after him, and he didn't even know what he was asking back for. But that partner had the opportunity at that time to have gone, it's not even what are you talking about, you stupid kid, and just
Right. Right.
totally not empower him and just leave anyways. And that might have been a core memory for my child where he felt so powerless, right? So I was really,
and that guy could have totally taken that situation and made it bad.
I
And like kids are so pure, they're so innocent, and I think that's so great that that guy didn't get in the way of that.
right?
Let him have his little moment, because like it's totally a self-esteem building moment.
Absolutely.
But so many times, I think kids are so vulnerable where losing that self-esteem at such a young age, like
The lasting impact.
it does make a lasting impact.
And
and
that
it's just because you don't see it now, and you don't, the addiction isn't here yet, and you don't, the kid isn't telling you like that hurt my feelings. It's because you don't see that now doesn't mean it's not happening.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it shows that even somebody with an active cocaine addiction, it really speaks to this being a disease and it's not a moral failing, because
Yeah,
that
because
was an
people don't want to
example.
be
Yeah, and that was an example.
addicted or wrecking their life. Like for me, like when I was in active addiction, I always prided myself for certain virtues, and I my virtues were like literally falling away, and I was watching them fall away. I was like becoming this person I didn't recognize anymore. I didn't like. I didn't love. I was so ashamed of, and my morals were being lost away, and I couldn't keep anything anymore. So it wasn't like I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go drink and be a total deadbeat and f my life up. And my thinking wasn't that. My thinking was like, I'm ruining my life. I can't get back to me. I feel like a loser. I'm not gonna make it. I'm wrecking everything. Like,
That's right.
like I wanted to be better and different, and I couldn't. Like that was
That's
where
right.
I think my morals, it's like I wanted to still be the
Yeah,
good part, but I couldn't.
that's
Like
right.
I
It speaks
couldn't.
to the disease taking
Yeah, it's like
over.
just like
And it's not a moral
got you.
failing, because
Yeah.
that's an example of somebody in active addiction and he still had a good moral compass, recognizing, don't crush this child's
Spirit. So
heroic.
it kind of shows that like he's still a good guy, it's still there, but maybe it would have been a different story if there was like a bag of dope on the other side of that kid. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Because then it would be like the addiction would have been like,
absolutely.
excuse me, like,
Right. Like you
but
said, if the cocaine was in the bed, it would have been out of there with him.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah. So, but yeah, the disease is powerful, and but I think that people are still good people. They don't want to be there,
Well, yeah, exactly.
you
And
know.
I think in recovery, we have to be able to have the hope that, I think hearing that it is a disease, that we are powerless over the substance is such a hopeful message, because I know with mistakes that I made during my time, if I had believed that is the fabric of my character and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a bad person, it would be a lot harder to forgive myself, and it would be a lot harder to move on. It was such a pivotal part of my recovery and my ability to have a new day and forgive myself by recognizing I didn't act this way as a result of low morals or bad standards or values. This was literally an addiction that took over, and I was powerless over it, right?
Amazing, because I think what's so interesting about the program is like by labeling that as a disease creates the separation where you're not the disease, it's a thing, and you're separate, but you're infested with that sickness.
That's
And so
right.
when you come into the program with the whole support of the program, is you get to that helps take that part out that you aren't it,
That's right.
right? Like you might have done like I've done bad things
But
in
in
addiction, but I'm not bad because of
Yeah,
that. Like
that's
I
right.
can feel guilt and not feel proud of myself, right? And feel sad. And I should. I
Hmm.
should, I was didn't show up very good in those days, those years, many years. But it doesn't mean I'm bad. Like
That's
and that's like
right.
trying to separate the person from the shame, like that you aren't the shame.
That's
You're the person
right.
still.
And I think that's why the spiritual solution is so effective, because, you know, um,
White knuckling.
being in
Yeah.
touch with that source of, in my situation, like I identify my higher power as love, right?
Yeah.
So, and identifying that I remained separate from my decisions to that source. I was, it was a result of suffering, not understanding, bad decisions, all the things that addiction causes. And as I say, I don't think I would have ever recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, or had the life that I've gone on to have in recovery, without being able to recognize exactly that. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why my parenting, back to the parenting thing, I
Yeah.
recognize that my children I feel love and light, and that's why I acknowledge them with positive unconditional regard. And as a result of seeing somebody as perfect, I see the innermost essence of my children, I always saw as perfect, and I recognized and raised them where, yeah, the behavior is completely separate. You are always in positive unconditional regard. We don't like that behavior.
Yeah, the
So
behaviors not the child. Yeah, it's
yeah,
a lot of people get caught up on the symptoms and the behavior. Like I know my like this is like parent recovery here,
that's right.
right? But the school will be like, your son is stealing or lying, and it's like without like I think my recovery has played a huge part in my parenting, but it's like because I'm an addict and understand that what I'm doing is just showing there's another problem in recovery, like and so now I have
It's
a
a
spiritual
symptom.
solution, but so like when that shows up, I know that my son is not bad. I know that there's something's going on with my son.
That's right. It's a
I
symptom
know
of
that
something
yeah,
deeper.
and it's just like my job is to like get some understanding, get curious,
That's right.
and be helpful to him, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't want him to keep stealing, but like
It,
I think that there's just something else there's a separate thing going on. You know, like the behavior of the child is different.
That's
Same thing with
right.
adults in recovery, and you know, just because like even me, like I'm in recovery. When I was in active addiction, I didn't know why my behaviors were. I didn't have any connection to what was happening with me. But in recovery, I I go, oh, I'm like, you know, I'm obsessively cleaning for too long, even when I'm tired. And I, you know, if I go past my limits, if I'm shopping too much, if maybe I'm snappy too much. Like I notice for me when my behaviors are coming up, I go, oh, something's up with me.
That's
Like I need to
right.
figure that out.
That's right.
You
Yeah,
know.
that awareness that we get.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't think it's possible to get aware of anything if you're at the effect of your drugs or alcohol. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I always remember thinking when I was hungover and stuff, it was like it wasn't real life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what drinking felt like to me. This is sort of
Because it's
the,
fun to be there.
yeah, but it
Yeah.
was also like I felt like it was like the dress rehearsal to the real life I was eventually going to start and have. You know, one day, tomorrow or the next day, then I'll really, then I'll
There's
really
like
take
no
this
starting,
serious. Yeah, you never
right?
get there. That day never comes, as long as
Right.
that addiction is going.
Mm-hmm.
But identifying that no, this is your life, and you are wasting it away doing this. This is not a dress rehearsal. Like time waits
You're
for no
responsible
man.
now.
Yeah, time waits
Yeah.
for no man. This isn't sort of like cut. Okay, now I'm
Mm-hmm.
really going to be a productive member of society. So
Yeah, like there's that active alcohol. We'll have to wrap up soon, but
yeah,
there's that active alcoholic addiction, like kind of thinking where I will get to it, or I'll just have one more drink, or um, the justifying, the bargaining, the
yeah,
pushing it off. Like
that's right.
recovery is like right now, though. What are
That's
you thinking
right.
right now? What are you gonna do right now? Like not in the fantasy, not in the future, not in the past. Like
Action.
present moment.
Yeah. Well,
You
and I love
know.
the analogy. Like they'll say stuff like, if you went back to your bar that you drank, it would probably have a lot of the same people talking about the same dreams that one day they're going to have when everything's perfect and there's no action. And so I love that our program is a program of action, literally even
Peace in the
steps,
action,
even calling them steps, one
one
foot in
after
front
the
of the
other.
other,
Yeah,
one day at
yeah,
a time, like,
yeah,
bite-sized pieces. And I know for myself when I've worked with newcomers and stuff, I'm always quick to say like, um, as I lose my train of thought,
newcomers,
yeah, but I
take it
always,
easy.
yeah, no big jumps, like bite-sized pieces, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
just keep like if you were a pot on the stove, turn yourself down to a simmer. No sudden moves. That's what I was looking for. No sudden moves, right? Because the sudden moves that we make when we are in active addiction or alcoholism, they're not coming from a balanced place. So the fact that we're able to get ourselves down to a level place by removing the substances and then
yeah,
rebuilding this new
yeah,
perception in life, right?
yeah, and like no sudden moves, but you know what? It is a very reactive time in early recovery. It's like
Yeah.
you might be more sudden than you want to be, but
Right.
try not to be.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, so I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you guys for being here for another episode, talking about parenting and recovery, spirituality, and just active to recovery. And it's an amazing journey. Thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much for being here.
Thank you so much, Jazz. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.